There's a clean square on my carpet, right where the machine used to sit. You can see it if the light comes in a certain way late afternoon, mostly when the sun gets low enough to come straight through the blinds. The rest of the carpet's gone gray with years, walked on, vacuumed flat. That square's still got its color, still looks new almost, like it's waiting. 97 years old. Name's Augusta. The girls at the front desk here call me Miss Gus, which I never agreed to, but I've stopped correcting people my age. Takes too much breath. I sewed for 61 years. Wedding dresses. Toward the end I had a little shop. 2 women ran with me for a while before they both passed, and I kept it going alone longer than I should have. Before that it was uniforms, drapes, choir robes, whatever paid that month. My hands still know the weight of good silk versus the cheap kind, even now. I could thread a needle in the dark. Still can. I check sometimes, just to be sure the hands haven't forgotten what the eyes used to do for them. I wear a tape measure around my neck. Habit from the shop. There's nothing left to measure most days. A few inches of hem here, a button that needs moving. I wear it anyway. Feels strange on the collarbone without it. My granddaughter is named Renata. She's the one who handles my pharmacy, my bills, the things I can't drive to anymore since my eyes got the way they are. She doesn't come on any kind of schedule, just whenever it suits her week, between her own children and her husband's work and whatever else fills a young woman's days now. I used to mind that. Used to sit by the window some mornings expecting her and getting nobody. I don't mind it the same way anymore. Or I tell myself I don't. I fell back in the spring, reaching for a bolt of fabric on the top shelf of the closet, the blue one, never even got it down. My fingers just brushed the edge of it and the stool tipped and I went down hard on the hip. Lay on that floor a good while before I could get to the phone. Counted the ceiling tiles, 41 of them. I remember that exactly. Don't remember much else about that hour. Broke the hip clean through. Spent 19 days in a rehabilitation place with beige walls and a roommate who watched her game shows at full volume because she wouldn't wear her hearing aids. A young aide there, sweet girl, used to braid what's left of my hair just to give her hands something gentle to do at the end of a long shift. I remember that kindness more than I remember the pain, if I'm honest. Nobody came the first week. Renata called twice, said the drive was long and her husband needed the car most days for his work, and she'd come when she could. I told her it was fine. It wasn't particularly. I lay there at night listening to my roommate's television through the curtain and thought about every time I'd driven 2 hours in the rain for one of her childhood fevers without being asked. I didn't say that to her. I said it was fine. I've said that word more than any other word in my life, I think. When they finally brought me home, I came in through my own front door on a walker, slower than I've ever moved through that space in 50 years of living in it. The first thing I saw before my coat was even off, before I'd set the walker down, was that square of carpet, lighter than the rest, clean, empty, and in its place, where my machine had sat for 11 years, there was a recliner, brown vinyl, still had the plastic wrap on the headrest, the kind you forget to peel off and then it's been 6 months. Somebody had pushed it right up against the wall where the cabinet used to stand. I didn't go straight to the recliner. My second bedroom is just past it. Down the little hall, that's where the machine used to live, where my cutting table is, where the good light comes in from the east window. I went there first, walker and all, because that room is the one thing in this apartment that's been entirely mine since I moved in. Nobody else's coat's in that closet. Nobody else's name on anything in there. The door was shut. I had to lean my whole weight against the walker to get it open. There was a bunk bed against the far wall, still smelling like the cardboard box it came folded up in. A short dresser with cartoon stickers half peeled off the drawers. A laundry basket of someone else's little socks sitting where my cutting table used to be. My fabric, what was left of it, was folded into a stack in the corner, pushed up against the baseboard like it was something to step around. I stood in that doorway a long time, long enough that my hip started to ache from holding still on it. I didn't say anything that day. Not to the aide who'd helped me in, not to Renata, who'd let herself in earlier to get things settled before I got home, she said. It took me 4 days to ask. 4 days of sitting in that recliner looking at the square of carpet, running my hand along the plastic on the armrest until it started to peel a little at the corner from where my fingers kept picking at it. 4 days of walking past that half-open door and not going in. Renata came by on the 4th day with my prescriptions, and I said, "Whose bed is that in my sewing room?" Just like that. No build-up, no clearing my throat first. She didn't look at me right away. She was unwrapping the pharmacy bag, very careful with it, folding the receipt in half and then in half again before she set it on the counter. She said the boys needed somewhere to sleep when they stay over now that they're getting older, and I wasn't going to be sewing in there again anyway. Was I? Not with the hip the way it is. And it seemed like a waste to keep a whole room shut up for nothing. I asked where my machine went. She said there was a woman from her church who sews for the women's shelter downtown. Said the woman needed a machine bad, and mine was just sitting there unused while I was laid up. And wouldn't it be a blessing for somebody to use it instead of it collecting dust in a room? I wasn't going to need that way again. I asked the woman's name. She said Patricia. Then, a beat later, she said Pat. Then she said she'd have to check with the church office because she always got it confused with another Patricia who does the same kind of work out there. I let that sit. I didn't say I noticed. I've sewn enough seams in my life to know one that's been rushed at the last minute, hoping nobody looks too close. I called that church myself 3 days later when Renata wasn't around to hand me the phone or do the dialing for me. Took me a while to find the number, longer still to get someone who knew anything, since the first 2 people just transferred me around to voicemails that never picked up. The woman who finally answered had never heard of a sewing program for the shelter, said maybe I had the wrong church. There's only one Baptist church on that side of town that Renata's ever mentioned in 20 years, but I didn't push the woman on the phone. I just thanked her and hung up and sat there with the receiver still warm in my hand for longer than it took to make the call. Renata's mother, my daughter, moved out west when Renata was small, chasing a man and then a job and then another man, and never quite chased her way back. I raised that girl more than her own mother did some years, weekends and summers, and the long stretch after her father's plumbing business went under the first time, when nobody else had room for a child in their week but me. I don't say that to anybody. I'm not saying it now to make a point. It's just a fact I keep folded up somewhere. Same as anything else, I don't take out and look at most days. What I didn't say to Renata that day or any day since is that I taught her to sew when she was 7 years old, in that exact room, on that exact machine. Little hands, terrible with knots, used to stick herself with the pins on purpose just to see me jump and laugh about it. We made a quilt one whole summer out of her father's old work shirts, the plaid ones he wore till the elbows wore through, sitting on the floor of that room with the good east light coming in. She still has that quilt, far as I know, folded in a cedar chest somewhere, probably. I've never asked to see it again. Didn't want to know if she'd thrown it out. She used to call the machine Grandma's noisy friend. Said it talked too much when it ran, all that clattering. She was 8, maybe 9, sitting under my work table on a cushion in that very room, playing with scraps while I worked above her. I think about that more than I'd like to admit, sitting in the recliner some afternoons, looking past it at the door of the room that used to be both of ours and is now neither. 3 weeks after I came home, my neighbor Earl, 2 doors down, retired postal man, talks more than any man his age has any business. Talking mentioned to me out by the mailboxes that he'd seen a sewing machine just like mine, the same dark wood cabinet, the same little chip out of the left front corner where I'd dropped a flat iron on it back in 1980-something, sitting on a folding table at the flea market out past the highway. Said the fellow selling it wanted $40 and wouldn't come down a dime. I asked Earl what the fellow looked like. He said heavyset, maybe 50, had on a t-shirt with some plumbing company's name across the back. I don't know any women from any church who match that description. I do know Renata's husband does plumbing work on the side for cash, and that his truck needed a new transmission right around the same time my hip went out, because she'd mentioned it to me once on the phone, in passing like it was nothing. I just thanked Earl for the conversation and went back to my apartment and sat in that recliner a long while, longer than usual, until the light moved off the carpet square and the room went dim around me. I know what a chipped corner looks like. I know there's only one like it in this town, far as I'm aware, and I know it wasn't sitting in any church basement helping any woman named Patricia. When Renata came by again, I didn't ask about Patricia or the church or the phone call I'd made. I didn't mention Earl or the flea market or the transmission. I'd practiced one thing to say, and I kept my voice flat going into it. I said, I don't need the machine back. And I don't need the room back either, not the way it was. I'm 97 years old. But I asked you whose bed that was before I asked anything else, and you answered that question straight. I needed you to answer the other one the same way. Just tell me it's gone. I can carry gone. I cannot carry being lied to in my own front room. She didn't answer right away. She picked her purse up off the counter and held it against her stomach the way she does when she's deciding whether to cry or get defensive, that little tell she's had since she was a girl. She said, Mama, the boys needed a room. That was true. I never said it wasn't. She ended up doing neither, crying or arguing, in the end. She just said she'd check on me Thursday and gathered her keys and left without finishing the sentence she'd started about the pharmacy. She didn't come Thursday. The phone didn't ring that whole week either, not once that I answered. Earl knocked twice, brought me a tomato off his balcony plant the second time, set it on the counter without much comment, and left again. I put it in the windowsill to ripen the rest of the way. It sat there next to the tape measure I'd taken off and not put back on. A week after that, there was a small drawstring bag hanging on my doorknob when I went to get the morning paper. Cloth, hand-tied, the kind you'd make out of a scrap if you had one lying around and a few free minutes. Inside it were buttons, dozens of them, mismatched, old, the kind I used to keep in coffee tins back when I had a workroom worth keeping coffee tins in. I don't know who left it. Renata never said a word about it, not on the phone, not the one time she did come by after, and I never asked her straight out, because I'm not sure I want the answer to be no. Could have been her, quietly, without wanting credit for it. Could have been Earl, trying to be kind in his own clumsy way. Could have been somebody in this building I never even knew was paying attention to an old woman who used to sew. I keep that bag on the side table now, right next to the recliner, since the recliner's the only chair I've got that's still in a room of my own. I open the bag some evenings and run my fingers through the buttons, slow, one at a time. A few of them I recognize off a coat I made for a man whose name I've lost, off a dress I can't place anymore no matter how long I sit with it in my hand. I sit in that recliner most afternoons when the light comes in low and hits the square on the carpet just right, lighting it up like it's still got a job to do. The door to the other room stays shut most of the time now, except when the boys come to stay. My hands still move sometimes, like they're threading something. There's nothing in them. No needle, no thread, no noisy friend humming under the table waiting on me. I let them move anyway.